The light within the resonating chamber was a living thing, a cold, crystalline blue that pulsed in time with the slow, deliberate thrum of the Cathar Imperium's heart. It shimmered across the obsidian floor, a perfect mirror reflecting the stoic figures of the High Council, their carapaces of polished chrome and bioluminescent circuitry absorbing the ambient glow. At the chamber's apex, upon a throne carved from a single solidified gravity well, sat Archon Vorlog. His ancient mind, a repository of millennia of conquest and governance, was a turbulent sea beneath a surface of absolute stillness. Before him, suspended in the very air, hung the source of this unprecedented assembly, a hologram of a star, but a star unlike any other in the known galaxy. It was caged, encased in a vast, latticework sphere of impossible scale, a delicate filigree of metal and light that orbited its parent sun with a grace that bordered on arrogance. It was the human star Sol and its audacious creation, what the fledgling species called their great shell. "It is an affront," declared General Kalen, his voice a low-frequency growl that vibrated through the chamber's resonant crystals. His massive frame, built for war and intimidation, was taut with a predatory energy. "A monument to their cowardice. They have walled themselves in, hiding from a galaxy they are too timid to face. They possess no meaningful fleet, no orbital defenses of note beyond this. Ornament, they have squandered their resources on a bauble while the great powers stake their claims among the stars." He gestured with a sharp, bladed limb toward the shimmering hologram. "They are inviting subjugation. It is the logic of dominion. A vacuum of power must be filled. We should have absorbed them generations ago when they first breached their atmosphere." From the opposite side of the chamber, Elder Vorlag, his carapace aged to a pearlescent white, stirred. His movements were slow, each gesture carrying the weight of centuries. "The general speaks of logic, but sees only with the eyes of a warrior. There is a logic in this structure, but it is one we do not yet comprehend. To encircle a star is not an act of cowardice. It is an act of total commitment. It required the unified effort of their entire species for generations. What purpose could drive such a monumental undertaking? We have studied their history. They are a species of incandescent ambition, prone to brutal conflict, yet they ceased their outward expansion and turned their gaze inward to build this sanctuary." "A sanctuary is a cage," Kalen countered, his mandibles clicking with impatience. "They have locked themselves in with their star, cowering from the shadows. Our scouts have confirmed it. Their system is quiet. Their colonial outposts are sparsely populated, focused on resource acquisition for this single grand folly. They are a species that has gone decadent, turning to art instead of arms. They are defenseless." The word hung in the cold, blue air. Defenseless. It was the conclusion of every military report, every strategic analysis conducted by the Cathar Imperium. Humanity, a species that had burst onto the galactic scene with alarming speed, had suddenly and inexplicably halted. They had retreated to their home system and embarked upon the single largest construction project ever witnessed by the known galaxy, a project with no discernible military application. The shell had no visible weapon emplacements, no energy signatures consistent with shield generators, no hangars berthing warships. It was, by all Cathar metrics, a beautiful, useless, and utterly vulnerable piece of galactic architecture. Archon Vorlog remained silent, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the holographic star. He saw what Kalen saw, the apparent lack of fortifications, the strategic vulnerability. But he also felt what Vorlag felt, a deep, profound disquiet. The silence from the human system was not the silence of a sleeping culture. It was the silence of a held breath. He had reigned for 1,000 cycles, had overseen the absorption of countless civilizations. He knew the scent of fear, the posture of a culture on the verge of collapse. This was not it. This was something else, something alien to his vast experience. "Their broadcasts have ceased," a counselor of the diplomatic caste noted, her voice a series of soft, melodic chimes. "For the last cycle there has been nothing, no cultural transmissions, no diplomatic overtures, no stray signals. They are contained. They are isolating," Kalen declared triumphantly. "The final proof of their decline. They have become so enamored with their creation that they have forgotten the galaxy beyond it. It is time, Archon, a demonstration, a fleet positioned in their outer system, a demand for fealty. They will capitulate. Their spirit is broken. We will grant them protectorate status, absorb their technology, and this great shell will become a symbol of Cath. Arar magnanimity." Archon Vorlog shifted on his throne, the slight movement sending ripples through the gravity well that held him. He had built his reign on the logic of dominion, the core tenet of Cathar philosophy, that strength imposes order and order creates stability. The galaxy was a chaotic place, filled with upstart species and dying empires. The Cathar were the constant, the anchor. To allow a species like humanity, with its potential and its unpredictable nature, to exist in such a state of self-imposed isolation was a disruption to that order. It created a question mark in a galaxy that the Archon preferred to be a declarative statement. And yet the unease persisted. He recalled the early human transmissions before they had gone silent. They were a chaotic torrent of information. Art, music, science, philosophy, war. A million different voices crying out into the void all at once. They were not a monolithic culture like the Cathar. They were a cacophony, a species that argued with itself, that celebrated its contradictions. For such a species to unify for a project of this magnitude, it suggested a catalyst, a motivation so powerful it could override their very nature. What could it be? Fear of the Cathar? Unlikely. At the time of the shell's inception, the Imperium was a distant, theoretical power to them. Fear of another unknown entity? Perhaps. But intelligence reports from the galactic rim showed no new emerging threats. Elder Vorlag, the Archon's voice was deep, resonant, the sound of tectonic plates shifting. You have studied their philosophical texts, their histories. What is your counsel? The Elder stepped forward, the blue light glinting off his ancient carapace. Archon, their history is a litany of self-inflicted wounds and miraculous recoveries. They have brought themselves to the brink of extinction numerous times, only to rebound with greater strength and understanding. They possess a terrifying capacity for both destruction and creation. They are a paradox. Their greatest weakness, their internal division, is also the source of their greatest strength. Their adaptability. We see a cage. I fear they see something else entirely. A tool, a lens, or perhaps a weapon that does not look like one. Kalen scoffed, a grating sound of metal on stone. A weapon, look at it. It is fragile. A single volley from a dreadnought's primary cannon would shatter a segment, causing a catastrophic collapse. It is an eggshell, Elder, an elegant but ultimately hollow eggshell. And what if the shell is not the weapon? Vorlag mused softly, his gaze lost in the hologram. What if the star within is the ammunition? A deep silence fell over the chamber. The idea was preposterous, a violation of known physics and cosmic sense. To weaponize a star on that level was the realm of myth, of the precursor species that had vanished eons ago. No civilization, especially one as young as humanity, could possibly wield such power. The energy requirements, the sheer complexity of stellar manipulation, it was unthinkable. The Archon considered it. He allowed the impossible thought to take root in his mind, to be examined by the cold logic that had guided him for centuries. If they could control their star, even to a small degree. But no, there was no evidence. No stray energy readings, no gravitational anomalies. The star within the shell behaved exactly as a G-type main sequence star should. The reports were unequivocal. Your speculation is intriguing, Elder, the Archon said, his voice bringing the council back to the present. But it is not based on evidence. Our actions must be guided by what we know, not what we imagine. And what we know is that the human species has presented us with a system that is, for all intents and purposes, unguarded. It is an anomaly that undermines the stability of this galactic quadrant. It invites challenges from lesser powers. The Rygorn hegemony and the Xylos Combine are already making predatory overtures in neighboring sectors. Our inaction would be perceived as weakness. He rose from his throne, his immense form casting a long shadow across the chamber. The blue light seemed to coalesce around him, drawn to the authority he projected. General Kalen, you will assemble the fleet of glorious subjugation, a force of overwhelming power, not for destruction but for demonstration. You will proceed to the Sol system. You will position your armada beyond their outermost planet. You will transmit our proclamation of vassalage. You will give them one of their solar cycles to comply. If they refuse, you will demonstrate the fragility of their great work. Fire a single, low-yield plasma bolt at an uninhabited section of the shell. A crack in their precious egg, that will be sufficient to break their will. Kalen bowed low, his bladed limbs scraping against the obsidian. It will be done, Archon. The logic of dominion will be upheld. Elder Vorlag did not bow. He simply watched, his ancient eyes reflecting the caged star, a flicker of profound uncertainty in their depths. As the council dissolved and the grand chamber emptied, he remained, a lone sentinel in the pulsing blue light. He could not shake the feeling that the Cathar, in their infinite pride and unshakable logic, were about to knock on a door without any comprehension of what might answer. The humans were not silent because they were afraid. They were silent because they were listening. And soon they would be an active part of the conversation. The fleet of glorious subjugation was a breathtaking sight, a testament to the might of the Cathar Imperium. It was a spear of hardened adamantium and living crystal, slicing through the silent void between stars. Dreadnoughts, vast as city-states, formed the spine of the armada, their prows etched with the symbols of ancient victories. Cruisers and destroyers, sleek and predatory, moved in perfect synchronized formations, their engines leaving faint, iridescent trails in the quantum foam. At its heart, nestled within a cocoon of protective force fields, was the flagship, the Will of the Archon, commanded by General Kalen himself. From his command dais, Kalen watched the stardusted infinity stream past the viewscreen. The journey had been uneventful, a silent testament to the Imperium's undisputed control over this arm of the galaxy. His bridge crew, a collection of the finest officers the warcast had to offer, performed their duties with a quiet, ruthless efficiency. There was no tension, only anticipation. This was not a war, it was a coronation of sorts, the formal welcoming of a lost, wayward species into the fold of a true galactic power. "We are approaching the outer marker of the target system," the navigator chimed, its voice a synthesized cascade of tones, transitioning from warp stream to sublight velocity. A low hum vibrated through the deck plates as the colossal ship disengaged its faster-than-light drive. The chaotic swirl of hyperspace collapsed, replaced by the serene, pinprick stillness of normal space. And there it was, distant but already dominating the view, Sol, and the gossamer cage that surrounded it. Even from this distance, the scale of it was obscene. Kalen had studied the schematics, the long-range scans, but they were a pale imitation of the reality. The great shell was not just big, it was sublime. It captured the light of its star and refracted it, creating a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Delicate as a spider's web, yet vast enough to swallow moons. His initial disgust was now mingled with a grudging sense of awe. To conceive of such a thing was madness. To build it was something else. "All ships report successful transition," his tactical officer reported, a sharp-featured Cathar with eyes that never seemed to blink. "We are in perfect formation, no hostiles detected, the system is quiet." "As expected," Kalen rumbled, striding to the forward viewscreen. He stared at the shell, a predator sizing up its prey. "They are asleep in their cradle. It is time for their awakening. Open a broad-frequency channel. Transmit the Archon's proclamation. Standard Imperium protocol. Inform them of their new reality." The proclamation was sent, a packet of data containing the full weight of Cathar law, history, and military might. It was a declaration of benevolent assimilation, an offer of protection and purpose in exchange for total, unconditional fealty. It was an offer the Cathar had made countless times, and one that had never been successfully refused. They waited. The minutes stretched into an hour. The fleet hung in the silent darkness of the Uit cloud, a silent testament to Cathar patience. The only sound on the bridge of the asterisk Will of the Archon was the faint hum of the life support systems and the soft clicks of consoles being monitored. "No response, General," the communications officer reported. "The proclamation was sent. We can confirm its reception by multiple nodes on the shell, but there is no reply, not even an automated acknowledgement." Kalen's mandibles tightened. This was unexpected. Fear usually prompted a quick, panicked response. Arrogance would have elicited a defiant retort, but this silence was a void. It was unnatural, it was disrespectful, it was a profound insult to the Imperium. "They are testing our resolve," he snarled. "They think their silence is a shield. They believe we will not dare to mar their perfect creation." He turned to his tactical officer. "The Archon's orders were clear. We are to give them one of their solar cycles. We will adhere to that, but have the primary cannon of the lead dreadnought target a nexus point on the southeastern quadrant of the shell. An unpopulated structural joint, according to our scans. Calibrate for a minimal yield shot. I want to scratch their paint, not break their toy." "Aye, General. Targeting solution being calculate." The hours crawled by. The human solar cycle, a quaint and inefficient measurement of time, was a long period to wait for the inevitable. Kalen passed the time observing the shell. He zoomed in the viewscreens, marveling at the intricate detail. There were no seams, no bolts, no obvious signs of construction. It looked as if it had been grown, not built. Vast sections of it were transparent, revealing the dark, star-speckled void on the other side, while others were opaque, glowing with the soft, internal light of habitation. It was beautiful, and the more he looked at it, the more his awe curdled into a cold, hard rage. This beauty was a lie. It was a facade for weakness, a testament to a species that had lost its way, that had chosen aesthetics over survival. As the designated time limit approached its end, the tension on the bridge, once non-existent, began to build. The quiet efficiency of the crew was now tinged with a palpable sense of anticipation. The silence from Sol had gone from being a curiosity to a weight. It pressed in on them, a suffocating blanket of absolute inaction. It felt, Kalen was forced to admit to himself, less like cowardice and more like confidence. A terrifying, placid confidence. "The deadline has passed, General." his second-in-command announced, his voice low and steady. No response from the humans. Kalen stared at the shell, its serene glow mocking him. Elder Vorlag's words echoed in his mind. What if the shell is not the weapon? He dismissed the thought. It was the ramblings of an old scholar, not the assessment of a warrior. The evidence was before him, a silent, undefended target. Execute the demonstration, he commanded, his voice cold as the void. Fire. On the lead dreadnought, the iron hand of Dominion Asterisk, immense energies coiled within its primary weapon. A containment field shimmered into existence around the forward emitter, struggling to contain the nascent starfire within. The order was given. The field would collapse, and a sliver of plasma, a tiny, controlled sun, would be hurled across the millions of kilometers to deliver the Imperium's message. But it never fired. In the instant before the energy was released, something happened. It was not a loud event. There was no explosion, no flash of light. It was a subtle, profound shift in reality. On the bridge of the asterisk will of the Archon asterisk, the stars outside the viewscreen bent. The pinpricks of distant suns seemed to smear, dragged sideways as if the fabric of space-time itself were being twisted. A wave of gravitational distortion, visible and yet utterly silent, emanated from the great shell. It was not an energy beam. It was a ripple in the universe. The tactical officer screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock. General, space-time metrics are impossible. I am reading a gravitational tide that should not exist. It's everywhere. The wave washed over the fleet. There was no impact, no shudder of shields being hit. The ships of the fleet of glorious subjugation simply ceased to be where they were. One moment they were a magnificent armada poised on the edge of the Sol system. The next they were gone. The space they had occupied was empty, pristine, as if they had never been there. The silent, glowing shell continued its serene orbit, utterly unchanged. On the bridge of the asterisk will of the Archon asterisk, there was only a split second of utter confusion. The smearing of stars, the impossible readings, the silent wave. And then a lurch, not of acceleration or deceleration, but of relocation. The viewscreen flickered, the starfield outside dissolving into a chaotic, psychedelic blur of color and light for a moment that seemed to stretch into an eternity and yet last no time at all. Then it resolved. The bridge was the same. The crew was the same. The ship was intact, its systems reporting green across the board. But the view outside was wrong, utterly, terrifyingly wrong. Sol was gone. The great shell was gone. In its place was a dense, unfamiliar nebula, a swirl of incandescent violet and emerald gas. The constellations were alien, the patterns of stars chaotic and unrecognizable. "Report!" Kalen roared, his mind struggling to process the sensory impossibilities. The navigator was frantically working its console, its synthesized voice trembling with something akin to electronic fear. "Location, unknown, general. Stellar cartography does not match any known region of Imperium space. Relativistic drift, by the first ancestors, we have been displaced. The logs indicate an instantaneous translocation of the numbers are meaningless. Thousands of light years, at minimum. Displaced, not destroyed, not damaged, just moved. Moved across the galaxy in the blink of an eye as easily as a piece on a game board. The entire fleet, intact, unharmed, and utterly defeated. It was a show of power so far beyond the Cathar's understanding of physics that it might as well have been magic. It was a gesture of dismissal, not of aggression. They had not been seen as a threat to be eliminated, but as a nuisance to be brushed aside. Then the communications officer spoke, his voice a choked whisper. "General, we are receiving a transmission. It's from the humans." On the main viewscreen, the image of the alien nebula dissolved, replaced by a simple, clean interface. And then a face appeared. It was a human female. Her features were soft, her hair dark, her eyes a deep, calm brown. She wore no uniform, no armor, just a simple gray tunic. She was seated in a room that was stark and minimalist, with a single, strange, green plant in a pot behind her. She did not look like a warrior. She did not look like an empress. She looked like a scholar or a gardener. "This is Steward Alara Vance of the Sol Coalition," she said, her voice calm, measured, and devoid of any discernible emotion. The Cathar Universal Translator rendered her words perfectly. "We acknowledge your arrival in the Kepler system. We apologize for the abruptness of your journey. You left us with very little choice." She paused, her eyes seeming to look directly at Kalen as if she knew he was the one in command. "You seem to have misunderstood the purpose of our home. We would like to take this opportunity to correct that misunderstanding. Shall we talk, General?" Back in the resonating chamber of the Cathar Imperium, Archon Vorlog stood before the holographic display. But it was not displaying the great shell anymore. It was displaying a live feed from the asterisk will of the Archon. It was displaying the calm, serene face of the human female, Alara Vance. The entire High Council was assembled, their earlier arrogance replaced by a stunned, horrified silence. They had watched the fleet vanish. They had listened to the panicked, unbelievable reports from Kalen. They were now witnessing the first official conversation between the Imperium and a power that had just effortlessly demonstrated a mastery of physics that bordered on the divine. "You refer to yourselves as a coalition," Kalen's voice crackled through the chamber's speakers, strained with a fury he was barely managing to contain. "Yet you act with the authority of a unified God-king. You have committed an act of war against the Cathar Imperium." The human, Vance, tilted her head slightly. It was a gesture of curiosity, not of concern. "An act of war, General. We did not destroy your ships. We did not harm your crews. We simply moved you. War implies destruction. This was a relocation, a message. Your fleet was preparing to damage a structure that is vital to the survival of our species. We responded with the minimum amount of force necessary to neutralize the threat. Is that not a sign of restraint? A true act of war would have been to unmake your fleet atom by atom where it stood. Believe me when I tell you that was an option." The casual way she said it, the absolute certainty in her voice, sent a chill through the Archon's ancient being. He was watching a paradigm shift. The logic of Dominion was built on the idea that superior firepower creates order. But what did that mean when faced with a power that didn't need firepower? A power that could alter the very battlefield or remove you from it entirely. "Why?" Kalen demanded. "Why the silence? Why the deception? You hid this power. You built this thing and presented it as a piece of art. You made yourselves look defenseless." "We did not hide our capabilities, General," Alara Vance replied, her voice still impossibly calm. "We simply did not advertise them. There is a significant difference. We find that overt displays of military power tend to invite conflict rather than deter it. They create an atmosphere of fear and competition. It is a philosophy you, of all species, should understand. Your own doctrine, the logic of dominion, is predicated on it. Power vacuums must be filled. Military parity must be challenged. An arms race is the inevitable result. We chose to opt out of that race entirely. Instead, we focused on a different kind of power. Not the power to destroy, but the power to control, to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. The shell is not a weapon, General, not in the way you understand it. It is an instrument, a hyperscale physics laboratory. Its primary function is to allow us to modulate the output of our star and to manipulate the space-time geometry of our system with extreme precision. Elder Vorlag, standing beside the Archon's throne, let out a soft hiss of vindicated breath. What if the star within is the ammunition? He had been close. The star wasn't the ammunition. The star was the engine, and the shell was the focusing lens. "Your demonstration," Vance continued, "the firing of your dreadnought's cannon was a threat we could not ignore. The shell maintains a delicate and complex series of gravitational and energetic balances, an uncontrolled energy release against its super. Structure could have had unpredictable consequences. So we acted. The wave of gravitational lensing you experienced was the shell gently altering the space-time curvature around your fleet, creating a temporary, stable wormhole that connected your location to your current one. It was the most benign application of this technology we could devise." Kalen was silent for a long moment, the cogs of his military mind grinding against a problem they were not designed to solve. "Benign," he finally repeated, the word tasting like ash. "You threw my entire armada across the galaxy and you call it benign?" "Yes," she said simply, with no hint of irony. "Because the alternative was to use the shell defensively. In that instance, rather than creating a stable wormhole to asterisk somewhere, it would have created an unstable one right where you were, one that led nowhere. It would have shunted your fleet into a pocket of incoherent space-time. A far less pleasant outcome, I assure you. We chose to preserve life. Is this not the action of a civilized species?" In the resonating chamber, the Archon felt the gazes of his entire council upon him. Their universe had been reordered in the span of a few hours. Their greatest military force, the symbol of their dominion, had been neutralized without a single casualty, without a single shot fired in anger. They had encountered a power that did not play by their rules, that did not even acknowledge the game board they had spent millennia dominating. He stepped forward, his own voice now projecting through the comm system to the distant, displaced fleet. "This is Archon Vorlog of the Cathar Imperium," he said, his voice a low thunder. "Steward Vance, you have made your point. Your capabilities are considerable. You speak of civilization and the preservation of life. Yet you built a device capable of manipulating the fabric of reality on a scale we thought impossible. One does not build such a thing without purpose. You say it is not a weapon. Then what is it? Why does your species need a tool that can move fleets across the galaxy or erase them from existence?" For the first time, a flicker of something new crossed Alara Vance's face. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was a profound, ancient weariness. The calm facade cracked just for a moment, revealing a depth of solemnity that was more intimidating than any threat. "Because Archon Vorlog," she said, her voice now imbued with a somber gravity, "we are not the most powerful thing in this universe, not even close. We built the shell for the same reason our most distant ancestors built walls and lit fires, to protect ourselves from the dark. You assumed the shell was a cage to keep us in. You were wrong. It is a shield to keep something else out." She gestured to something off-screen. The view behind her changed. The minimalist room was replaced by a star chart, but one of a kind the Cathar had never seen. It was a map of their entire galaxy, rendered in stunning, three-dimensional detail. But it was more than that. It was a map through time. Ghostly images of star lanes and nebulae faded in and out, showing the galactic drift over millions of years. "Our species is young," Vance explained, "but we are obsessive record keepers. And when our deep space telescopes became powerful enough, we started looking not just at the present, but at the past. We looked for patterns, and we found one, a terrifying one." On the galactic map, pinpricks of light began to appear, then fade. They were clustered, marking specific locations. "These are the graveyards," Vance said softly. "The archaeological remnants of advanced spacefaring civilizations. The Har in your long history have surely found some of them. Worlds of silent, ruined cities, derelict fleets drifting in the void, species that reached a certain level of technological sophistication and then suddenly vanished, wiped out." The Archon knew of what she spoke. The Silent Ones, the Starforgers, the Whispering Fleets. Names given by Cathar explorers to the mysterious, long-dead empires they had stumbled upon over the millennia. It had always been assumed they had destroyed themselves in civil wars or succumbed to plagues or simply faded into decadence and collapse. The natural entropic way of the universe. "You believe these extinctions were not random," the Archon stated, his mind racing ahead. "They were not," Vance confirmed. "They occur with a chilling regularity, a cycle. Every 50 million years, give or take a few millennia, the galaxy is allowed to seed with life. Civilizations rise, they expand, they reach a certain threshold of energy production and interstellar travel, and then they are harvested." A faint, insidious signal was suddenly overlaid on the map. It was a wave pattern, a complex, repeating sequence of non-baryonic energy that pulsed from a single point, far out in the intergalactic void, beyond the rim of the galaxy itself. "We detected this, Sen. Taris ago. It is incredibly faint, ancient. It is a precursor signal, a wake-up call. Based on its trajectory and the decay of its energy signature, we were able to triangulate its source, and we were able to predict when the next harvest is due." Vance looked directly into the camera, her calm eyes now filled with a grim purpose that resonated across the light years, from the displaced fleet to the heart of the Cathar Imperium. "The cycle is about to begin again. We believe we are the primary target this time. Your Imperium, for all its power, is likely a close second." The final piece of the puzzle slotted into place in the Archon's mind. The sudden halt of human expansion. The unified, desperate focus on a single, colossal project. The silence. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't cowardice. It was preparation. It was a species that had looked into the deepest, darkest abyss of cosmic history, seen the monster that stared back, and had decided with a terrifying unity of purpose to build a fortress to withstand it. "This, Harvester," the Archon said, the term feeling alien and obscene on his tongue. "What is it?" "We do not know," Vance admitted. "A machine intelligence, a biological entity of immense scale, a non-corporeal consciousness. Our data is incomplete. All we know is that it operates on a level of physics that makes our shell look like a child's toy. It does not travel asterisk through asterisk space. It seems to emerge in asterisk it. It targets advanced technological signatures. It is methodical, efficient, and it has never failed. Not once in the billion-year history we have been able to reconstruct." She paused, letting the sheer, overwhelming weight of the revelation settle. "We built the shell not to fight it, but to hide from it. Its primary function is to be a cloak. By encasing our star and our home world, we can dampen our energy signature, hopefully enough to go unnoticed. We can create a bubble of normal-looking spacetime, a quiet little corner of the galaxy that the Harvester might, if we are lucky, overlook. Your attack on our fleet," the Archon realized aloud. "The displacement, it was a test." "It was," Vance confirmed. "A full-scale, live-fire calibration of the shell's spacetime manipulation capabilities. We had to know if the theory worked in practice. Your fleet provided the perfect, unplanned opportunity. We needed to displace a significant mass energy concentration without destabilizing the system. Your arrival was fortuitous. Again, we apologize for the inconvenience, but the survival of our species took precedence." The sheer, cold logic of it was breathtaking. The humans had used the Cathar's greatest armada as a glorified test subject. They had done it non-lethally, ethically, but with an intellectual ruthlessness that was more chilling than any physical brutality. They were not warriors, they were scientists, and the universe was their laboratory. "And what now, Steward Vance?" the Archon asked, his voice heavy. The political landscape of the galaxy had just been rendered utterly meaningless. The rivalries, the borders, the logic of dominion itself, it was all dust in the face of such a cosmic threat. "You have your calibration. You will now cloak yourselves and wait for the storm to pass, leaving the rest of the galaxy to its fate." Alara Vance's expression softened, a hint of something that might have been empathy in her eyes. "That was the original plan, the isolationist doctrine, but our models have changed. The Harvester appears to be adapting. Its search patterns are becoming more sophisticated with each cycle. A single quiet system may not be enough. The presence of other advanced civilizations in the galaxy, like your own, creates a significant amount of background noise. The louder the galaxy is, the harder it is for any one of us to hide. Our survival, we now believe, is statistically linked to yours." She leaned forward slightly, her calm demeanor now charged with a new intensity. It was the intensity of an offer, an alliance. "We did not just move your fleet, Archon. We also sent it with a gift, a data packet. It contains everything we know, all our research on the Harvester, all our models, the full spectrum analysis of the precursor signal. We are sharing our greatest secret with you, our greatest fear, because we have come to a logical conclusion. We can no longer afford to face the dark alone. Humanity is offering to share its shield. We propose a new doctrine, not of isolation and not of dominion, but of mutual survival. We are stronger together." Silence reigned in the resonating chamber. The Archon looked at the faces of his council. He saw shattered pride, dawning comprehension, and a new, terrifying emotion he had not seen in this chamber for millennia. Fear. Not the fear of a rival empire, but the deep, existential dread of a universe that was suddenly far larger, older, and more predatory than they had ever imagined. General Kalen, from his distant, temporary peak. Ison in an alien nebula could only stare at the human's face on his view screen. His desire for conquest had evaporated, replaced by a humbling awe. They had come here to subjugate a species they thought was defenseless. Instead, they had found a race of quiet giants, standing guard on the edge of oblivion. They had mistaken the stillness of the deep ocean for a shallow pond, and had been swallowed by the tide. Archon Vorlog turned his gaze back to the hologram of Alara Vance. He thought of the Cathar's long, proud history, a history of conquest, of imposing their will upon the galaxy. They had always seen themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the ultimate arbiters of order. They were wrong. They were just one more culture, one more flickering candle in a windstorm they had not even known was blowing. Humanity, the chaotic, unpredictable, paradoxical species, had seen it. They had not wasted their time on petty squabbles for territory. They had looked past all of that to the true enemy, and they had prepared, not with fleets of warships, but with knowledge, with physics, with a quiet, unyielding determination that was both terrifying and magnificent. "Steward Vance," the Archon said, his voice now devoid of its imperial thunder, replaced by the gravitas of a leader facing a new and terrible dawn. "Your proposal is logical. The Cathar Imperium will study your data. We will verify your conclusions, but I believe we have stood alone in this galaxy for long enough. It seems a new age is upon us." He gave a slow, deliberate nod, the Cathar gesture of ultimate respect, reserved only for equals. "Tell us what you need from us. The shield you have built is strong, but the time for hiding may be over. Perhaps the time has come to forge a sword to go with it." On the screen, Alara Vance allowed herself a small, faint smile. It was not a smile of triumph, but of relief. The relief of a lonely sentinel who, after a long and silent vigil, has finally seen another light kindle in the darkness. The conversation had just begun, but the universe had already changed forever. The Cathar had come to Sol to find a vassal. They had left with a purpose, a new ally, and the chilling, unifying knowledge that the silence between the stars was not empty, it was waiting. And something was coming to fill it. The true war was about to begin.